Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I think we have been doing a series of podcasts, right? So my goal is to help people to break into product management role. So I've been inviting people from different backgrounds and who are currently successful product manager. So today we have Anjali, who is working as a product manager at Bajaj Health. And now, like, I'll be asking a couple of questions that the common questions that the community has asked. So thanks a lot, Anjali, for coming here. If you can give a quick intro about yourself to your audience, it would be really helpful.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Manoj, for having me. I am so glad to be here. Hi, everyone. I am Anjali. As Manoj said, I work as a product manager. I'm also a writer, a marketer, uh, design analyst, and so on and so forth. So I basically do a lot of things, and I think that's we all will be talking about today. So yeah, very excited for the show.
So let me start with the first common question, right? Like, how did you discover product management? Uh, and I know that you are from engineering background, right? So how did you discover product management?
So honestly, I did not discover product management. I would rather say in a very cliched way that product management has discovered me. So I was an engineer with an electrical degree. Then I thought that coding is cool. So I moved to that software development domain. I've done fellowships with say Google and Microsoft, but I'm just more of a people person, I think. So I went to marketing. Then I did digital marketing, business analyst. And then finally I found something like product management, which is basically an intersection of all of these things, and I was very glad that something like this existed because I just didn't know what to do with all of those different skills in my life. So yeah, I did not exactly discover this, but it's probably the best thing for anyone who is basically good at multiple things at the same time.
Got it. Yeah, my second question is like product management is a very wide field, right? Like in different companies, a product manager does different jobs, etc. Right? It depends on the stage of the company and even the persona, type of company, and user to business model. So, what according to you is product management?
Okay, that's a good question. And it has a very technical and non technical definitions. Technically, obviously, as everyone is aware of, product management sits at the intersection of design team, technology, and business team. And non technically, product manager is basically responsible for facilitation processes, right? So, product manager is someone who is responsible to get the work done, in my terms, and get the business moving.
Got it. And second, like the next question is like, what according to you are the top five skills that a product manager should have?
Okay. That's also very subjective, I would say, depending upon which industry do you work in, which company do you work in, as you have already mentioned, which stage your startup is. If you are lakeside at a very early stage startup, you are basically responsible for doing everything compared to if you are a very structured startup as such. At initial stages, you are more of the execution product manager, and at later after 5 years, you will be more of a strategy product manager. So skill set changes, considering we are targeting the people who are either just entering or in the early age of product management. I would say getting things done from people, like getting the work done when you are not exactly responsible for doing the work, is by far the most important skill I've ever experienced in my product management experience. So as a product manager, you get to work with say design team, technology, business team, so on and so forth. You are basically accountable for all the work that is being done, but you can't practically do all of the work. So your ability to get the work done when you're not doing the work, you're facilitating the work, is the most important skill. Apart from that, knowing the market, knowing the industry from where you come in, uh, overall data management, data analysis, customer empathy is also one of the very important skill, because you need to understand what the customer exactly wants and not what it looks like the customer will want or might like. So these, after that, the last one is prioritization. As a product manager, you're basically responsible for doing everything. So you need to manage your day, your time, and obviously your work items accordingly to have a structured roadmap to this. So prioritization is also a very good thing.
Got it. I think the first point is very important, right? You'll have lot of tasks in your plate. It's more about prioritization and delegating it to right people to get the work done. Uh,
Yes.
Understood. And next, like common problem I see in people today, right? They face a problem in validating, okay, is product management the right career choice for me or not? So what according to you, if someone, let's say they thought कि यार product management is also one of the option which I'll keep in my let's say career priorities, then how can one decide, okay, this is the best career option for me?
Yeah. So there's one concept of prototyping, if a lot of people might be aware of, and there are two methods of validating anything. So this is not just your career choice as a product management, but your career as anyone. And I also give a lot of gyan on say choosing the right career, so on and so forth. I've read a lot on this. So I came across this concept of prototyping. So there are two types of prototyping, right? First is prototype conversations, where you are basically talking to someone who is actually doing something which you are aiming to do. So if for example you want to work as a product manager at Flipkart, you'll reach out to a couple of people who are working already at Flipkart and ask them what the day looks like, and not just the good part, ask them what are they most irritated about, like what are they not happy about, so on and so forth. Because whatever you do, at the end of the day there will be some things which you might not be very happy about, right? So this is a one type of validating your idea. By prototyping conversations, you can reach out to their seniors, juniors, so on and so forth, and prototype the conversation, and then see if you have to live the same day every single day, then will you like it or not, right? Second is prototyping experiences. That's again a second method of validating. In that, you have to be a product manager intern or so on and so forth, or at least join any startup or a very small company, just to see if this is the kind of work you like doing for the rest of say your life for next 5 6 years. So you can reach out to these people, say I'm available for the next 3 months and so on, do you have any project in hand? There are also other ways of prototyping experience, like product tank and so on and so forth. They give tear downs. So if you just participate in the tear downs and see what is exactly expected of a product manager in any instance, and do you like it or not? If you like it and if you are ready to be with the things that comes with it, it's great. If you don't, maybe you can look out for other things. But these two things works very well for me, so I can suggest that people to do that.
Got it. I think the first one is you talk to people who are already in that, and second one is you try doing the work and understand ki will you be able to do it for a longer period
Yes,
of
try gaining that
time.
experience from in any capacity.
Yeah. And the next question I have is I saw that you're doing multiple things. Like you had also written a book and you also write in your blogs, etc. Right? So in general, today, if you see the supply is very high for product management role because of the hype, right? And the demand seems to be like coming down, not like increasing, or let's say it's constant. So, like according from your experience, right, what are some things that people can do differently, right, so that they have a edge to get the product management job? And even you can share your experience, like what you have been doing.
Yeah. So great question. Yes. The demand is pretty high. We all can see on LinkedIn. Everyone is basically telling multiple things in the same or different ways. I just wanted to highlight one thing, that why people exactly create such content is because even if there's like so much of material about product management out there, there's always couple of people who will text you on LinkedIn saying hi, how did you get into product management, and so on and so forth, right? So maybe the demand is not that great, but even the people who are in demand are not exactly looking a lot, right? So maybe that's why the scope of all product management related content, including this video, might be helpful to some people. Second thing about how do you do things differently is if you use your product management experience to enhance what you already are good at, right? So as I said, for me, product management is about facilitating processes in alignment with business or a startup or whatever you work with. So if you can facilitate one process, it becomes easier for to you to basically facilitate another, right? So figure out what you're good at naturally before your job maybe, or after your work days, so on and so forth. For example, in my experience, I have started a newsletter called Great Question. right? So the great question is not exactly about product management, even though whatever I have learned and implemented is through product management, how to be happy or how to get the best result in less amount of time, so on and so forth. So that is not exactly product management, but the concept is same. My second accomplishment, I'm also very proud for, that is my book. I've kept it here for shown purposes. So the book is about moving your journey from ideation to launch, which again involves a pinch of product management, but this has nothing to do with product management. It is applicable for every single one out there, specifically for corporate employees who basically are stuck with ideas and so on, right? So if you want to do something differently, first you need to find something which you are naturally good at. They're always like, talents and skills, which we all say. Talents are something which you are born with it, right? You just need a couple of here and there things and you are great at it. Skills are something which you acquire over the way. I will always consider product management to be a skill. Anyone can learn that, anyone can be good at it. But if you combine that skill with a talent, that becomes a differentiating factor, and that will help you to move ahead and to create your niche of doing things differently. So yeah.
I think the next question I have is like during your college, right? You would have attended some product management interviews. So, what are the general interview rounds uh, for a product manager role?
Yes, so I have done engineering, so I've not exactly went through the product management interview process through campus, because, and why I'm pointing this out is because campus processes are very different. So your college is basically responsible for you to get the job, and they facilitate the whole process. So you don't have to do a lot while applying for jobs as on campus processes. But when it comes to off campus, which is applicable for most of the engineers turned product management, because mostly product management is hiring from MBA colleges, you need to put an extra effort as such. So before the interview process, you need to be ready to brand yourself as a product management. As I said, you might prototype conversations, prototype experiences, so on and so forth, but create a brand around your own profile, perfectly on LinkedIn because it works for me, but you can build it on anywhere, any platforms. Many platforms are there. And then you reach out for a specific role. So one thing which helped me throughout the process is I was very sure I either wanted to get into healthcare or fintech, right? So I, by default, 50% of the options were eliminated. Once someone asked me, why do you want to join my company, I was very clear. So that's a differentiating factor. It was not like I'm applying to say 100 jobs, which I apparently did, but only with fintech and healthcare. And then I'm just going with whatever I got into. I'm getting into something which I know I am very sure of. And that's why you see this whole process as a product management journey and your career as a product. This is again one of the best advice I have received. So I didn't have a product management experience and I wanted to get a job. So one of my mentors has told me that you take your career as a product and already start working as a product management, right? So then the very first step is to identify what is your target audience, whom do you want to work with, so on and so forth. Then create your whole product, which is your resume, according to that. What do they really want, what might be helpful for them, so on and so forth, and then navigate through the process. As when it comes to interview, I think getting the interview call is the most important and most difficult step. After that, it's pretty much same. So it starts with a qualitative round just to check if you're good with maths, numbers, analysis, so on and so forth. And then there are a couple of case studies or guesstimates, again, depending upon which company do you interview with. So guesstimates again to check how you solve a problem and how structured is your thinking process. Then again, problem solving, because that's your job. You're supposed to solve problems as a product management. So they just wanted to see how it works and how good you are when you don't have the experience or so on and so forth, right? Again, if you're applying for say a tech company like Google, Microsoft, uh, Adobe, I think, then you also need to have a couple of coding interviews. So once is very basic, they ask for prototypes and pseudocodes and so on. And second is a coding round. So in these companies, it's a mandatory to know how you code. And there's also a book called Cracking the PM Interview, where they have lied each and every company's process. So you can go through that. And after that, there's a behavior fitment round, which is pretty much common. In Google, they call it checking the googliness, and other companies, they just check the HR fitment, if you are, like, ready to be aligned with the values, the company values, so on and so forth. So pretty much the process revolves around the same. But if you just focus on your skills, which I mentioned earlier, right, you will be very good with what you do. And if you are aiming for a very big company as such to start your career with, you also need to do a couple of mock interviews with people, and there are a lot of platforms you can do that, just to practice problem solving. Because as I said, product management is a skill. So for learning a skill, you need a little bit of practice. So if you practice enough, you will be good to go.
One more like question, right? In general, like every product managers, they would be different depending upon the stage of the company they work at. So, want to know how does your day look like as a product manager?
Yes, so I work at Bajaj Finserv Health. It's a fintech plus healthcare plus service company. It's a division of Bajaj Finserv, which is more into lending and NBFC. So my work as a product management is to facilitate the labs transactions as such. So the all the lab bookings, everything, pathology, blood tests, so on and so forth. That is my key role as of now. I've also had multiple projects. So my day obviously starts with proper scrum, and a scrum are two type of scrums. First is a product scrum, where you seek, what all stories are we working on, what are the work items, what we need to focus this month, and what are the metrics in general. Like every product manager has a metric to track, KPI and KRAs, and that's a different story altogether. But you just need to track that how you are on a monthly, weekly, and a daily basis. So that's product scrum. After that, we move to a tech scrum, where we just track whatever has to be on in the particular sprint. Is it delivered, not delivered? What is the status? Is there any challenge? So on and so forth. Right. So then we have a couple of business meetings, by which involves showcasing of our work to the business to see if they're aligned. So then they give feedback. This is something which we want. This is something which we don't want. So on and so forth. After that, obviously, there's lunchtime, and after lunchtime, there's a meeting with internal product management. So every team has around 2 to 3 product management, and they combine and then see the vision, set the vision, so on and so forth. And then the day ends by analyzing, figuring out your days, creating stories, roadmaps, PRD, so on and so forth, like your work that you're supposed to do. And if there's any blocker, which comes very naturally at a very frequent pace, and then you plan for the next day. So more or less, that's how the day ranges, with obviously a little bit variations of uh, talking to certain people, going to the market to understand what the customer wants, so on and so forth.
Got it. Understood. And the next question I had is like, what are some of the resources you use to learn about product management, or nowadays also you're following to upskill yourself, or some of the people you follow to learn about product management?
Yeah, so I personally used one book, which I've just mentioned, Cracking the PM Interview. More or less, my experiences was in turn aligned with what product management demands. So it worked well for me in hindsight. Obviously, I didn't know that when I was actually doing all of this. But in today's like time, I would say, if anyone wants to join in, my first advice will not exactly look out for, say, product management interview process. Right, it's very I won't say easy, but it's very straightforward to clear an interview. And I've seen so many sad product managers because eventually they didn't like what they're actually supposed to do. The interview process just checks your skill. So you might be great at cracking a skill or proving it to someone that you know a skill, but it's a different process altogether. So the very one thing which you need to work on and look out for resources accordingly is problem solving. It can be as basic as playing video games, right, and not getting addicted to it, as a disclaimer. But playing video games, solving puzzles, just figuring out how other businesses are works. So keep your curiosity alive. That's what my newsletter is also about, right? Great question. You keep asking question. Why is WhatsApp making so much money? Why Facebook is acquiring Instagram? There's also a resource called Swipe to Unlock, and it's an excellent book everyone should read, especially if you are moving to product management. They cover almost everything like it's a play. and the whole book is written in questions, right? Why X is doing why X is doing Y, so on and so forth, in product strategy, in technology, so on and so forth. And they also claim to be a technologist guide for a non-technology background product management. So that two books I would contribute my whole career to as of now when I get started. And then obviously you need to be in the market, so reading relevant information. So I'm in healthcare, I need to be updated what all technologies are coming in. If you are in say service, so on and so forth, you need to be updated with your industry or the industry you aspire to be in. I think that's pretty much it. Otherwise, if you are obviously preparing for an interview, you can check I got an offer website. It's a great resource. And you can also take part in say product hunt is also a very good platform to see what other peoples are doing. They showcase beta level apps as such. And yeah, product folks is also doing a great job in terms of content and tear down and so on and so forth. But as I said, there's a lot of resources which are basically talking about the same thing. So I think focus on the skill rather than the interview process will help you a lot, in my opinion. Again, this is subjective, so yeah.
Got it. And the next question I had is, so let's say someone, so mostly everything is a technology company, right? So what is the level of understanding a
Yes.
person should have about the technology or about how systems work, like before they get into product management? So someone who has done engineering and computer science, it's easier for that person to like get in, right? Because he has a basic understanding. Let's say someone who is in non-tech background, what is the level of understanding that the person should have?
Yes. So you need to know how systems and processes works. That's sort of non-negotiable for product management, because you need to explain something to someone, mostly technology people, developers, leads, and so on. So it's not possible that you did not know any of this. But the level of knowledge depends again on the industry you work in. If you work in, say, a service-based industry as such, your relevance to tech will be very less, right? Because there will be always tech people, tech leads, PMO, and so on and so forth, which will be handling that case for you. You just need to give product requirements and they'll take care of the tech. If you're working at a very small scale startup or people where there are not a lot of product management as such, then you need to know product management and the tech side of it, because there's no one responsible for doing it. So again, and then there's a quote of it depends. Everything in product management is it depends. So it depends on the company you're applying for, but the basic processes and structure you should be aware of. That's why if you're not aware of the tech part, you can read Swipe to Unlock, and I think that one book is pretty much sufficient for you to understand how in general processes works in from tech side, and you will be very good to go. But again, if you're aiming for a proper tech company, Google, Adobe, as I mentioned, Microsoft, you need to learn how to code. So maybe you can do that in your free time and so on and so forth. But you can't move ahead without knowing how do you code, even though if you know the understanding. So again, depending upon which company do you target, it depends what level of knowledge you need to get. But basic understanding is required in every job as a product management.
Got it. Uh, yeah, I think like yeah, understanding of high level system design, how pseudocode works, how different API related, how does the API work, etc. Right? Understood. And the last question I had is,
Yes.
what is the one advice you want to give to aspiring product managers or anyone who is trying to transition to a product manager role?
Okay. So one advice I think would always be to be open, right? So as a product management, you're supposed to do things which were never written in your job description, because the job description is not defined as such. A lot of people can be called product management and they might be doing very different things from each other, right? So the more open you will be, the more curious you will be to know how it works in your general life, not just product management and so on and so forth. But if you just read across things, like as I've just mentioned, if you're using an app, Instagram, how did Instagram become popular, right? What all features did they use? How do they test, like where to put the reels icon? And I remember the reels icon moved more than me the last year. Like they moved the reels icon so much. I was so frustrated with Instagram at one point. But you know, why are they doing it? There's always a reason behind such big companies are putting all of these efforts in front of people to validate something. So if you just be open and curious towards the world and not just be ignorant as such, that will work. My second advice will always be have or develop a bias for action, right? So bias for action is also sort of a talent, but you can develop it and it's some sort of a skill. So if something you're supposed to do, then you get that done, and not just from you, from someone else out there, because again that will help a lot as a product management. Once you go in there, you're responsible for getting the work done. You're not basically in charge of all the work that is being done. It's very important that you keep that bias for action and propagate that throughout functions, because that will take you to a very long journey compared to any other thing. So these two things will be my obviously best advices. Other than that, there's one thing, that keep learning, because the world changes a lot. A lot of people now are basically using AI and all of these things to get the work done. Ultimately, it's the human which gives the prompt to the AI, right? So use things for your
Hmm.
good and move ahead, because if you won't, someone else will. So you are losing that competitive edge as such. So yeah.
So it's more about staying curious, learning about new skills, like new things that are going on, and upskilling yourself, right? Yeah. And thanks a lot,
Yes.
Anjali, for your time. And it was really helpful and insightful for everyone. And I'll attach all the links which you had told in the description,
Yeah.
and everyone can check it out. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.